Every single day, you are brainwashing yourself. The question is not whether you're doing it, you are. The question is whether you're programming yourself for success or failure. Most people accidentally condition their minds for mediocrity, disappointment, and struggle. They repeat the same limiting thoughts, the same excuses, the same fears, until these become their automatic responses to life. But what if I told you that the same mental mechanism that keeps people trapped can be deliberately used to create extraordinary success? Right now, raise your hand if you've ever caught yourself saying, "I can't afford it," or "That's just not possible for me." Keep it up. Now, how many times have you repeated those exact words this week, this month, this year? You see, your mind doesn't distinguish between truth and repetition. It simply accepts whatever you feed it most consistently. You have been unconsciously programming yourself through repetition, and the results you're getting in your life are the direct output of that programming. There was a man who worked in a factory for 12 years. Every morning, he would look in the mirror and say, "Another day, another dollar." He complained about his job, his boss, his circumstances. He repeated these complaints so often that they became his reality. His mind was perfectly programmed for dissatisfaction. One morning, his wife asked him a simple question: what would happen if you spent as much energy thinking about what you want as you do complaining about what you don't want? That question changed everything. He realized he had been training his mind to focus on problems instead of possibilities. Within 6 months, he had started a small business on the side. Within 2 years, he had replaced his factory income. Within 5 years, he employed 23 people. What changed? Not his circumstances. Those were the same when he started. Not his education. He had the same knowledge. Not his connections. He knew the same people. What changed was his mental programming. He stopped feeding his mind complaints and started feeding it possibilities. Your mind is like soil. It will grow whatever seeds you plant in it. It doesn't care whether you plant seeds of success or seeds of failure. It doesn't judge the quality of your thoughts. It simply takes whatever you give it most consistently and creates your reality from that material. The problem is that most people are unconscious gardeners. They plant weeds of doubt, water them with worry, and then wonder why their lives don't bloom. Here's what most people never understand. Your current results are not happening to you. They are happening through you. Every outcome in your life can be traced back to a pattern of thinking that preceded it. The person who constantly thinks about debt attracts more debt. The person who constantly thinks about sickness attracts more sickness. The person who constantly thinks about failure attracts more failure. This isn't mystical, it's mechanical. Your thoughts determine your actions determine your habits determine your results. But here's the breakthrough. If your mind can be accidentally programmed for failure, it can be intentionally programmed for success. The same mental laws that work against you can work for you. The same repetition that created your limitations can create your breakthroughs. The same consistency that built your problems can build your solutions. Think about learning to drive a car. At first, you had to consciously think about every action, checking mirrors, signaling, steering, braking. It required intense concentration, but through repetition, these actions became automatic. Now you can drive while thinking about other things, because the skill has been programmed into your subconscious mind. Success works the same way. Through repetition, you can program successful thinking patterns until they become as automatic as breathing. The wealthy person doesn't wake up each morning and consciously decide to think like a wealthy person. Those thought patterns have become automatic through repetition. The healthy person doesn't consciously choose healthy thoughts each moment. Those patterns run automatic. The successful person doesn't force themselves to think successfully. Success thinking has become their default mental state. Most people resist taking full responsibility for their mental programming because it's easier to blame external circumstance. They say, "I can't help how I think. Look at what's happening to me." But that's backwards thinking. What's happening to you is the result of how you've been thinking. Change the cause, and the effect must change. Change your mental programming, and your external results must change. When you truly accept that you are the programmer of your own mind, everything shifts. You stop being a victim of your thoughts and become the director of them. You stop reacting to circumstances and start creating them. You stop hoping for change and start causing it. But accepting responsibility is just the beginning. The real work starts when you begin to examine your current mental programming. What thoughts do you think most often? What beliefs do you hold about money, success, relationships? What stories do you tell yourself about what's possible for you? These are not just casual thoughts. They are the programming code of your life. Every morning, you wake up and your mind immediately starts running its programmed pattern. For most people, these patterns include worry about the day ahead, regret about yesterday, anxiety about problems, and resignation about possibilities. They don't choose these thoughts. They happen automatically, because they've been repeated so often, they've become mental habits. The person who has programmed themselves for success wakes up with different automatic thoughts. Their mind immediately starts running patterns of gratitude, possibility, solutions, and progress. They don't have to force these thoughts. They happen naturally, because they've been repeated until they became automatic. Your mind is always working, always creating, always programming. The question is whether you're consciously directing this process or letting it run on autopilot. Most people's minds are like gardens that have been neglected, full of weeds because no one has taken responsibility for what grows there. Here's what changes everything. The moment you decide to take conscious control of your mental programming, you step into a different category of human being. You stop being someone who hopes things will get better and become someone who makes things better. You stop being someone who reacts to life and become someone who creates life. The programming process is simple, but it requires consistency. Every thought you think is either strengthening your current programming or creating new programming. Every word you speak is either reinforcing your limitations or building your possibilities. Every action you take is either confirming your old patterns or establishing new ones. Most people underestimate the power of repetition because they expect immediate results. They try positive thinking for a week, and when their life doesn't completely transform, they conclude it doesn't work. But programming your mind for success is like building physical strength. You don't go to the gym once and expect to be strong. You go consistently, repeatedly, until strength becomes your natural state. The same consistency that created your current mental patterns can create new ones. The same repetition that built your current beliefs can build new beliefs. The same persistence that established your current habits can establish new habits. But you must be as consistent with your new programming as you were with your old programming. Think about a river carving through rock. The water doesn't force its way through. It simply flows consistently in the same direction until it creates a channel. Your thoughts work the same way. Consistent thinking in a particular direction creates mental channels that your mind automatically follows. When you first start reprogramming your mind, it feels unnatural. The new thoughts feel forced. The new beliefs feel fake. The new habits feel awkward. This is normal. You're creating new mental channels, and your mind naturally wants to follow the old, established pattern. But with consistent repetition, the new patterns become as natural as the old ones. The key is to understand that you're not trying to convince yourself of something that isn't true. You're not trying to pretend your way to success. You're training your mind to focus on possibilities instead of problems, on solutions instead of obstacles, on growth instead of limitation. These are all equally true. You're simply choosing which truth to emphasize. Your current circumstances are temporary. They are the result of your past programming, not a permanent condition. As you change your programming, your circumstances must change. This is not a matter of belief or faith. It's a matter of cause and effect. Change the cause, and the effect must change. Every successful person you admire has gone through this process. They have taken conscious control of their mental programming and deliberately created thought patterns that produce success. They didn't wait for circumstances to change. They changed their internal state, and circumstances followed. The most powerful realization you can have is that you are not stuck with your current mental programming. You are not doomed to repeat the same patterns forever. You are not a victim of your thoughts. You are the creator of them, and what you have created, you can recreate. What you have programmed, you can reprogram. This is where most people's transformation begins, with the recognition that they have been unconsciously programming themselves, and the decision to take conscious control of that process. Once you understand that your mind is programmable, and that you are the programmer, everything becomes possible. Now that you understand you're the programmer of your own mind, you need to understand the patterns that govern how life works. Life isn't random chaos. It operates according to predictable patterns and cycles. When you understand these patterns, you gain tremendous power because you can prepare for them, work with them, and use them to your advantage. How many of you have noticed that challenges tend to come in clusters? Raise your hand if you've ever had a period where multiple things seem to go wrong at once. Now keep your hand up if you've also had periods where multiple good things happened in succession. You see, life moves in waves. There are seasons of planting and seasons of harvest. There are times of building and times of enjoying what you've built. There are periods of struggle and periods of ease. Most people fight these natural patterns instead of working with them. When they're in a difficult season, they panic and assume this is their permanent condition. When they're in a good season, they become complacent and assume the ease will last forever. But successful people understand that both the storms and the sunshine are temporary. They use the storms to build strength and the sunshine to make progress. Think about a farmer. He doesn't plant seeds in winter and expect them to grow immediately. He doesn't get discouraged when the ground is hard and the weather is cold. He knows that winter is preparation time, spring is planting time, summer is growth time, and fall is harvest time. He works with the seasons, not against them. Your life follows the same seasonal patterns. Sometimes you're in a winter season where everything seems dormant and difficult. This is not punishment. This is preparation. Winter seasons are when you build character, develop skills, and strengthen your foundation. The person who uses winter seasons to grow becomes unstoppable when spring arrives. Sometimes you're in a spring season where new opportunities are sprouting everywhere. This is not luck. This is the result of your winter preparation. Spring seasons are when you plant new seeds, start new projects, and take calculated risks. The person who plants wisely in spring enjoys abundance in fall. Sometimes you're in a summer season where everything is growing rapidly. This is not the time to become lazy. This is the time to tend your garden carefully. Summer seasons are when you nurture what you've planted, solve problems quickly, and maintain steady progress. The person who works diligently in summer creates a bountiful harvest. Sometimes you're in a fall season where you're reaping the rewards of your earlier work. This is not the time to stop working. This is the time to harvest wisely and prepare for the next cycle. Fall seasons are when you collect the fruits of your labor, save for the future, and plan your next planting. The key is to recognize which season you're in and respond appropriately. When you're in a winter season, don't expect spring results. When you're in a spring season, don't waste time with winter activities. When you're in a summer season, don't coast on spring momentum. When you're in a fall season, don't forget to prepare for winter. But here's where most people sabotage themselves. They resist the season they're in. They want spring results in wintertime. They want fall rewards with spring effort. They want summer growth without winter preparation. This resistance creates unnecessary suffering and prevents them from gaining the benefits each season offers. The person who has programmed themselves for success recognizes that every season has its purpose and its gifts. They don't waste energy fighting the natural flow of life. Instead, they align themselves with these patterns and use them to accelerate their progress. Now, beyond these natural cycles, there are predictable patterns in how people sabotage their own success. Most people have unconscious programming that actually prevents them from achieving what they say they want. They engage in behaviors that guarantee failure, then wonder why they can't succeed. Who here has ever set a goal and then found yourself doing things that directly contradicted that goal? Be honest, raise your hand. This is self-sabotage, and it's more common than most people realize. Your conscious mind says you want success, but your unconscious mind is programmed for something different. The most common form of self-sabotage is excuse-making. People become experts at explaining why they can't succeed, instead of becoming experts at succeeding. They spend more energy justifying their limitations than they do overcoming them. They collect evidence for why their goals are impossible instead of collecting evidence for why they're achievable. Listen to how people talk about their goal. The person programmed for mediocrity says, "I want to be successful, but I don't have the right education." The person programmed for success says, "I want to be successful,
so I'll learn what I need to learn. The person programmed for mediocrity says, I want to be wealthy, but I don't have startup capital. The person programmed for success says, I want to be wealthy, so I'll find a way to create value with what I have. Do you see the difference? Both people face the same obstacles, but one focuses on why the obstacles make success impossible while the other focuses on how to overcome the obstacles. One collects evidence for limitation, while the other collects evidence for possibility. Another form of self-sabotage is procrastination. People delay taking action until conditions are perfect, but perfect conditions never arrive. They wait for the right time, the right opportunity, the right mood, the right circumstances. Meanwhile, the person programmed for success takes action with imperfect conditions and improves them through action. The procrastinator says, I'll start when I feel ready. The action taker says, I'll get ready by starting. The procrastinator says, I'll begin when I know exactly what to do. The action taker says, I'll figure out what to do by beginning. The procrastinator says, I'll act when I have all the information. The action taker says, I'll get the information by acting.
Procrastination is not a time management problem, it's a programming problem. The person who procrastinates has been programmed to avoid discomfort, to wait for certainty, to seek permission before acting. The person who takes action has been programmed to embrace discomfort, to act despite uncertainty, to give themselves permission to begin. The third major form of self-sabotage is blame. People become professional blame casters, always finding someone or something else responsible for their results. They blame their parents, their education, their circumstances, their boss, their spouse, the economy, the government, their industry, their age, their health, their luck. Blame is seductive because it removes responsibility. If your results are someone else's fault, then you don't have to change. You can stay exactly as you are and wait for external circumstances to improve. But blame is also prison. If someone else is responsible for your results, then someone else controls your future. You become powerless. The person programmed for success takes responsibility even when circumstances are genuinely difficult. They don't deny that external factors exist, but they focus on what they can control rather than what they cannot control. They ask, what can I do? Instead of why is this happening to me? Here's the pattern. Excuse makers focus on obstacles, procrastinators focus on discomfort, and blame casters focus on external factors. None of these focuses lead to success. Success comes from focusing on solutions, actions, and personal responsibility. But how do you change these deeply ingrained patterns? The same way you change any programming, through conscious repetition of new patterns. Every time you catch yourself making an excuse, stop and ask, what would I do if this excuse didn't exist? Every time you catch yourself procrastinating, stop and ask, what's the smallest step I can take right now? Every time you catch yourself blaming, stop and ask, what part of this situation can I control? The transformation happens gradually. At first, you'll catch yourself after you've already fallen into the old pattern. You'll notice you've been making excuses for 10 minutes before you remember to ask the better question. This is progress, not failure. Awareness is the first step in changing any pattern. With practice, you'll catch yourself sooner. You'll notice you're about to make an excuse and redirect yourself to solution thinking. You'll feel the urge to procrastinate and choose to take action instead. You'll start to blame someone else and shift to personal responsibility. The old patterns lose their power over you. Eventually, the new patterns become automatic. Solution thinking becomes your default response to obstacles. Action taking becomes your default response to discomfort. Personal responsibility becomes your default response to difficulties. You don't have to force these responses. They happen naturally because you've programmed them through repetition. The person who has successfully reprogrammed their mind thinks differently in every situation. When they encounter an obstacle, they automatically think, how can I overcome? Satisfaction of completion. This mental rehearsal programs your subconscious to expect success rather than struggle. 10 minutes total, 5 minutes of mental programming, 3 minutes of goal reinforcement, 2 minutes of visualization, every morning without exception, regardless of how you feel or what's happening in your life. This consistency is what creates the programming. Now, during the day, you need a system for maintaining this programming when challenges arise. Because they will arise. You will encounter obstacles, frustrations and setbacks. The question is not whether these will happen. They will. The question is whether you've programmed yourself to respond to them in a way that creates success or failure. Every time you encounter a problem, you have a choice point. You can respond with your old programming, making excuses, procrastinating, or blaming, or you can respond with your new programming. The new programming asks 3 questions in this exact order. What can I learn from this? What can I control in this situation? What action can I take right now? These 3 questions redirect your mind from problem focus to solution focus. The first question helps you grow from the experience. The second question helps you focus on what you can influence. The third question helps you move forward immediately. When you ask these questions consistently, you're programming your mind to automatically look for growth, control and action in every situation. But the most important programming happens at the end of the day. Your evening routine determines how effectively your subconscious mind processes the day's experiences and prepares for tomorrow's opportunities. Most people end their day by absorbing negative information, worrying about tomorrow, or replaying today's problem. They program themselves for anxiety and poor sleep. The person programming themselves for success ends the day by programming their subconscious for continued growth and success. They spend 5 minutes reviewing the day's wins, no matter how small. They identify 3 things they're grateful for. They acknowledge 1 thing they learned. They set clear intentions for tomorrow. This evening programming is crucial because your subconscious mind is most receptive to programming right before sleep. Whatever you feed your mind in the last few minutes before sleep will be processed and reinforced throughout the night. If you fall asleep thinking about problems, your subconscious will spend the night reinforcing problem patterns. If you fall asleep thinking about possibilities, your subconscious will spend the night reinforcing possibility patterns. Here's what most people don't understand. Your subconscious mind doesn't rest when you sleep. It continues working, processing and programming. You can either direct this process consciously or let it happen randomly. The person who programs themselves for success uses sleep as an 8-hour programming session. Before sleep, speak these words. Tonight, my subconscious mind will process today's experiences and prepare me for tomorrow's opportunities. I will wake up refreshed, focused, and ready to create success. This gives your subconscious specific instructions for how to use the night hours. Now, some of you are thinking, this sounds too simple to work. But that's exactly why it works. Complex systems are difficult to maintain. Simple systems can be maintained consistently, and consistency is what creates progress. The person who follows this simple routine for 30 days will notice significant changes in their mental state, their emotional responses, and their results. The person who follows it for 90 days will experience profound transformation. The person who follows it for 1 year will become a different person entirely. But you must measure your progress correctly. Don't measure by external results in the first few weeks. External results are the consequence of internal programming, and programming takes time to manifest in the physical world. Instead, measure by your internal responses. Are you catching yourself making excuses sooner? Are you taking action more quickly? Are you focusing on solutions more automatically? These internal changes are the real indicators of successful programming. External results will follow, but they lag behind internal changes. Most people give up during this lag time because they're measuring the wrong thing. They expect immediate external results from new internal programming, but that's not how the process works. Your programming influences other people whether you realize it or not. When you change your internal state, you change how you interact with others. When you change how you interact with others, you change how they respond to you. When you change how others respond to you, you change your opportunities, your relationships, and your results. The person who programs themselves for success becomes a magnet for opportunities because they radiate confidence, solutions, and possibilities. People want to work with someone who focuses on what's possible rather than what's impossible. They want to collaborate with someone who asks, how can we make this work instead of why won't this work? This creates a multiplication effect. Your programming doesn't just change your life. It influences everyone around you. Your family benefits from your increased confidence and positive focus. Your colleagues benefit from your solution-oriented thinking. Your community benefits from your example of personal responsibility and growth. But with this influence comes responsibility. When you program yourself for success, you become a model for others. People will watch how you handle challenges, how you pursue goals, how you treat setbacks. They will learn from your example, either consciously or unconsciously. This is why your programming must be authentic. You cannot fake mental programming. You cannot pretend to be positive while thinking negative thoughts. You cannot act confident while feeling defeated. Your internal state will always show through your external behavior. The good news is that authentic programming is more powerful than artificial programming. When your thoughts, words, and actions are aligned, you create a powerful force for change. When you genuinely believe in possibilities, others believe in them too. When you genuinely expect success, others expect it from you. This brings us back to where we started. Every single day you are programming your mind. You cannot not program. The question is whether you're programming it consciously or unconsciously, intentionally or accidentally, for success or for failure. The person who programs themselves for success doesn't wait for motivation. They don't wait for inspiration. They don't wait for perfect condition. They begin today with what they have, where they are. They understand that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. You already have everything you need to begin programming your mind for success. You don't need special equipment, expensive courses, or perfect circumstances. You need only the willingness to take conscious control of your mental patterns, and the commitment to maintain that control through daily practice. Starting tomorrow morning, you will either wake up and let the world program your mind, or you will wake up and program your mind yourself. You will either react to circumstances, or you will create circumstances. You will either hope for success, or you will program for success. The choice is yours, but you must choose. Not choosing is choosing. Waiting is choosing. Hoping for change without taking action is choosing. And what you choose today will determine what you experience tomorrow. The person who decides to program themselves for success and follows through with daily action will look back on this moment as the turning point. They will remember this as the day they stopped being a victim of their thoughts and became the director of. They will remember this as the day they stopped hoping for a better life and started creating one. Your mind is the most powerful tool you possess. It can work for you or against you. It can create success or failure. It can build your dreams or destroy them. The choice of how to use this tool is always yours. The time for hoping is over. The time for wishing is over. The time for waiting is over. The time for programming yourself for success is now, not tomorrow, not next week, not when conditions are perfect. Now, your future self is waiting for you to make this choice. Your family is waiting for you to make this choice. Everything you want is waiting for you to stop accidentally programming yourself for failure and start deliberately programming yourself for success. The question that opened this entire conversation was simple. Are you programming yourself for success or failure? Now you know the answer. Now you know the process. Now you know the choice. The only question left is, what will you choose?